Hi Scorpio Sun and Rising. Welcome to a video looking at the transits of Saturn and Neptune into Aries in 2025 and beyond. And this is an exciting period because we have all of the long-range planets, the generational planets, including Saturn, which is several year transit, 2.5 year transit as part of that, but certainly nowhere near the transit of Neptune, which is like 14 years or so. But just talking about them both being in the first sign of the zodiac, you can feel that new cycle starting with Aries coming on. And we're going to have Uranus going into Gemini, I believe, in July. We've already had Pluto go into Aquarius for good. I mean, it went back and forth, but it's there for good in January. So we can see that for the collective, this is really indicating, symbolizing that there is massive change that could be happening, that is happening, not just that could be, that is happening all at once, and so for the individual, these different transits fall in different houses. So I'm speaking specifically about the planets that are going into Aries. And for Scorpio individuals, this will be your sixth house of service to others, otherwise known as work, as well as your health and your daily schedule. And it's also important to note that your sixth house cusp will differ from Scorpio Sun or Scorpio Ascendant from one to the other. So you're going to have to consult the appropriate your chart for that to see exactly when it's going to land there. I'm just doing a general reading. If you would like a personal reading where I can look at the transits for the next 12 months, you can check the link below for my services. And or if you already have if you know how to read your own chart, obviously you can do that too. But anyway, let's look at the sixth house and what this means for you. So we're going to start with Neptune because it's going into Aries on the 30th of March. And so when Neptune goes into the sixth house, one of the first things that can happen for you is that you can start to feel a bit confused about what it is that you want to offer as a service. And I would say too, let me think about this for a second and think about the influences that you have had. You have Leo at the midheaven. So I'm trying to think, I mean, you haven't had any significant, oh, you know what you've had? I was going to say you haven't had any significant recent transits, but that's not true. You actually had Mars retrograde here. And again, it depends on what degree your midheaven is, because Mars retrograded at 6 degrees of Leo. And so it's possible, let's say your midheaven is like 10 degrees Leo, and Mars actually retrograded in your ninth house. Well, that could still, be relevant in what I'm talking about, because the ninth house is your personal philosophy in life. And so that may have undergone some kind of major overhaul. But let's assume it was in your 10th house. You may have kind of questioned what you've been working towards. And that may be taking you into a whole new direction. And so when Neptune goes into your sixth house, Neptune can indicate kind of confusion, but there's also, because it is a spiritual influence, and, in astrology, Neptune rules the 12th house, which is the house of Pisces. It's the house of the spiritual dimensions, past lives, things like that. It makes the person look at a practical house like the sixth house, which is an earth house, because in astrology it's ruled by Virgo, and it makes it otherworldly. I have Neptune, my natal Neptune, in the sixth house. So trust me when I say it can make your day-to-day life very otherworldly, which isn't necessarily a good thing sometimes, because you want to be very organized. People want to be able to get things done, and the sixth house can be your daily routine. And if you get Neptune going into that house, it can make you kind of like open-ended, like, hey, wow, let's just kind of drift around and float and see what happens. And it can be fun for and liberating for a while, but then it can start to get on your last nerve, because you feel like you can never do anything, because you're just kind of floating around in the moment, maybe even a bit confused about what you should be doing. For some Scorpio people, this is going to be the complete opposite of how you conduct yourself. I mean, look to your Mars sign, look to your, you might have your Mars in Virgo to begin with. And then you'll really be like, whoa, because Mars in Virgo is very pragmatic and very productive. And you may feel unproductive as F, when you have Neptune going through this house. But what it can really do for those Scorpio people who have always wanted to be healers is that you can take it seriously enough to do things that implement that in your life on a daily basis, and then at some point you're actually doing it as your profession. Because remember, it's your daily routine. So if you're not somebody who normally meditates, you might start meditating. If you're not somebody who looks at the connection between diet and elevating your spirituality, you'll probably do that, because the sixth house can be your diet. I mean, it's health. So it can have that kind of positive influence on you. If you're artistic, same. You may be like somebody who said, I can't make a living from that. I'm not going to try to do something like that for a living. And then you realize that this is how you want to spend your days. And so it just makes perfect sense that you would monetize this. And Saturn, when Saturn is there as well, you're going to feel like there is some way to do that, because Saturn is very grounding. And Saturn rules the 10th house of career, so it can take these kinds of offbeat occupations like being a healer or an artist, and you get disciplined about them and you're able to implement that. And I'll talk more about Saturn in a minute, because I'm going to focus here on Neptune. Because this is the house of health, you may see the body, mind, spirit connection. And if you've been having stress, if you have been, like I said, not meditating, and of course, you can use meditation as stress relief, but I don't like automatically talk about it in that sense, because I think it's so much more than that. But even on that level, yeah, I mean, you can find a way to really transcend this idea that, your body is just doing things on its own, and it has nothing to do with your mental health or your spiritual health. And because actually, like I said, Neptune rules the 12th house, and that can be mental health as well as the spiritual realms. And, truth be told, I think that they are pretty much one and the same. I think that when people have some of the mental health challenges, it's because they don't really have that connection with their spirit, their spiritual side, and they're believing too much in the world. And even when you talk about hardcore mental health issues like a schizophrenia, that can be, or even something like bipolar, which is, but I'm talking about like disassociation specifically. That can be because the person has that tapped in ability when it comes to other realms, but they're completely unable to kind of shut it off when need be. They're just like at the mercy of when it comes on and off. I've had the ability, the experience of talking to somebody that was like, I don't even like to say the word I was going to say, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because they really got like way out there. But they were also, they had the ability to, I mean, they were working until it got like really bad, but they were able to rein it in. They had periods where they were very lucid. And so, and then they had, periods where they were like completely in a diluted state. And so those kinds of situations can be that the person is kind of tapping into something. Yeah, even bipolar can, you can have hallucinations when you're bipolar too. So I would imagine that there is some connection with the spiritual realms with that as well, but it's not controllable and they get triggered by maybe some event in their life, and then they're off to the races and they're having a manic episode followed by a depressive episode, or however it plays out. And it's not very good. But the thing is that there's a very fine line between spiritual abilities and these, a psychosis, a psychotic episode. So this is about being able to utilize the benefits of spiritual practices to assist you with your physical health, which we would associate with the sixth house, and and your mental health and your spiritual well-being, and to kind of integrate all of these things instead of seeing them as separate. So anyway, that's another thing that the Neptune transit can bring about. And so definitely, if you are somebody who's artistic, you might get quite a lot of inspiration. And take yourself seriously this way, because this is an earth house, so be grounded with your spiritual pursuits. Maybe, especially, let me talk about Saturn, because Saturn can also give you that organization. And when Neptune is there, when they're both together, you can really take yourself seriously and think of yourself as a healer or an artist, or maybe both, because remember that there are things like sound healing, which can combine, music, or I guess, sometimes it is like actual music where there's melodies, or the sounds, like if you're using a tuning fork and things, that might not be an actual melody, but it's something that people are using with the senses to heal, and being able to do that. So that can be very helpful for other people. But if you are somebody who is a composer and you love to create music, like melodies and things like that, but you want to incorporate sound healing, you might do that. So it could be the two of them together. And but one thing I want to say about Neptune in the sixth house in terms of physical health, you have to keep in mind that Neptune can be things that involve deception or confusion. Now, in terms of deception, be careful of any kind of too good to be true, like people that are trying to sell you something for your health, or that is kind of deceptive in some way, or some kind of a healer that turns out to be, um, I'm not going to use the word quack because that word is used derisively against natural healers. And I actually think of the sixth house as more of a natural type of an approach, because Virgo is an earth sign, so it can be like herbs and all that stuff. But, there are people who are deceptive in every area. So really vet your health care practitioners. And also, any kind of illness that is very mysterious. Neptune can be mysterious. That's kind of what the medical medium, how what his niche is like, trying to find out the origin of very mysterious illnesses that people are having, that the conventional medical industry could not diagnose, and he does it through his intuition and things like that. And not saying that that is the answer for everybody, but just talking about the kind of energy around that, because sometimes people have these mysterious symptoms and they go from one healthcare practitioner to another and they cannot find the answer to it. So that's when I feel like it's really good to be in tune with your body at this time, so that that's a blessing of Saturn, because when Saturn goes into your sixth house, Saturn can be a taskmaster, a stern taskmaster. So you might find that you can't get away with certain things that you were able to before. And these could be some bad habits. Neptune can be addictions. So, and the addictions could adversely affect your health. And you might have said, yeah, but I was able to drink for like 20 years and I never had a problem with my liver. And by the way, liver problems it's not necessarily cirrhosis or anything like that. Just having any kind of impact to your liver can affect other functions of the body. And I actually have a book by the medical medium that talks about detoxification. I can't wait to read it, because I think that, I think he's even, putting the thyroid in with all of that. And so anyway, and that can affect metabolism. So it can be like a domino effect when you have these things. So with Saturn, you may find that you have to be really on point with diet, that you have to be quite strict with yourself. I'm not talking about, restricting calories. I'm talking about, unless that's something that, if somebody's overeating, that might be a different story. But I'm talking about being, having a clean diet and not just kind of eating a bunch of junk food. And yes, maybe you were doing it for many years and you could get away with it. And all of a sudden it's like you feel like really bad when you eat that stuff. Well, you have to be cognizant of that. And then Saturn can give you the discipline to change your ways. And so it's actually a blessing in a lot of ways, because you're going to get that discipline. And it's like Saturn wants to lay down foundation. So it's not just about how you feel today, but how you want to feel in 10 years and 20 years. It's like the long haul. And this can be a great time to shore up your health. And and I think for some people, they may find that their health is tested, especially if they have been lax in that department. They may find that they have to be really strict with themselves. Again, not talking about obsessing over health, but being mindful of what is good for the body and what is not. And then also there can be this this is the house of work. So this may be a time. Now, remember that Saturn has a transit like of 2.5 years or so. So it's not, you could say, thank God it's not like Neptune where it's like 14 years, where you have to roll up your sleeves and get down to brass tacks with your work. Like there's something that you're doing that is going to pay off in the long run, but right now is like a really big like push. So you have to have that discipline and that work ethic to be able to do it. And an example I would give is somebody is in their, let's say somebody's in their 20s, fresh out of college, and they're in this profession that they actually love and they want to establish themselves. Well, maybe they're going to have to do a lot of grunt work and they're going to be at the bottom of the totem pole, but they feel like if they apply themselves and they have this transit, you could get really far ahead of the game than if you were graduating from college and coming into the workforce in a totally different, having Saturn in a totally different area. You can make so much more progress. And even if you're like middle-aged and let's say you want to change careers, then you realize you have to start from square one. And you're going to have to just do, Saturn is the work itself. Saturn is the grunt work. The 10th house is the career. I always say the 10th house is the glory house and the 6th house is like the grunt work of the actual day-to-day work that you're doing. So that's what can happen. And in some cases, Saturn, it can be like it's like a test, and also you might be working hard and not making that much money. Again, like entry level type of stuff in some cases. And it's just temporary. It may feel like it's, a lifetime because it's like a few years where this is going on, but it could be a very good thing. And by the way, you may have a larger than 30-degree 6th house and thereby have a longer than 2.5-year transit of Saturn in this sector. I actually have that myself. I don't have this particular transit now, but I have a much larger 6th and 12th house than 30 degrees. So those transits take a lot longer to go through those houses when that's the case. At the beginning of the transit, it may feel kind of funky because, like I said, you may feel like, when I say transit, when both of these planets are in there together at the beginning, and so there's going to be like two beginnings, you could say. There's going to be this spring, I'm talking Northern Hemisphere, next couple of months. I'm recording this in March, from March to May. We're going to have both these planets enter there, and then they're going to go back into Pisces, and then in 2026 when they both enter again. It's going to feel funky because I think mainly the first time. Then the second time you already know, and you kind of have that, maybe some things coming up for you that go along with that. But let's just talk about 2025 when they're both in there direct. It's going to be funky because you have this confusion coming from Neptune, and you have this kind of restrictive, strict quality coming from Saturn, which is kind of it can feel like it's like something is bearing down on you when it comes to your work. And it could be your current occupation where you feel that it's kind of like the Four of Cups vibes, where you feel kind of like uninspired and you don't really like what you're doing anymore, and you're ready for a change maybe, but you haven't figured it all out. Just realize that this too shall pass. It's all part of the process. Okay, that's what I have for you. Scorpio, I hope that this resonated. You might you might see the writing on the wall, before it actually happens. And once you get into the thick of things, hopefully you'll remember that this is part of the whole experience in the transits. And so anyway, if you'd like a personal reading, you can check the link below. Take care.